Warning, we are not your attorneys. Please, don't take anything we say as legal advice. I'm Jeff.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Derek.
And you're listening to the Not So Grand Jury,
which is now sponsored by Morwa P. LLC. So, we are going to jump into Season 2 of The Lincoln Lawyer after spending 3 of our very early episodes talking about Season 1. As you may recall, we did an episode on the first episode of Lincoln Lawyer. We talked about Micky Hauer being effectively gifted a law practice and how that process worked. Then we did a whole episode on the Trevor Elliott trial, and then we did another episode on sort of the rest of the issues that were in Season 1. We're now going to go into Season 2. So, Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2, which are titled The Rules of Professional Conduct and Obligations.
Ironic.
Guys, I'm going to tease you something. Jeff's not a big fan. Jeff's not a fan. And that's one of the reasons why we're definitely doing this, because Jeff's not a fan.
To be fair, he's not a fan because it's not very good.
Listen, we're going to get into that later. I'm just going to tell you that Jeff has complained and Mike has complained. Our text chains are full of complaints, and I'm so happy we're here. Moving on. Both episodes dropped on Netflix back in July 6th of 2023. Season 2 of The Lincoln Lawyer is generally based on the book The Fifth Witness, the fourth book in the Micky Hauer series, written by Michael Connelly. Episode 1, it's apparent that Micky's enjoying his success after the previous season's big win in the Trevor Elliott trial. He's approached by a new client, Russell Lawson, and shortly thereafter becomes entangled in a supposedly dangerous ethical dilemma. Russell reveals he's the very man who committed the murder for which Micky got Jesus Menendez released in Season 1, and he insists that Micky's representation will protect him by attorney-client privilege. He's threatening Micky's career, his family, blah, blah, blah. Jeff is going to get heavily into that and probably explain why it's complete BS, but that is what happens. Meanwhile, Micky sparks a romantic relationship with a restaurateur. Lisa Trammell agrees to help her out with a restraining order. And meanwhile, honestly, Micky's practice is just sort of booming and they're dealing with those issues. Lorna is both in law school while also working and also dealing with a upcoming wedding with Cisco, and Izzy is now juggling driving duties as well as personal complications in her own life. And then episode 2 is essentially where all of these sort of ethical obligations play out. Micky seeks counsel from his confidant, David Legal Siegel, on how to handle the Russell Lawson blackmail, which ultimately basically they orchestrate a plan involving Gloria Dayton, also known as Glory Days, the witness from Season 1 whose testimony freed Jesus Menendez, who arranged to gain immunity and lure law enforcement to protect her. And Russell's scheme unravels when he attempts to kill Gloria Dayton because she is the one person remaining that can identify him. But basically the cops are there, arrest him, and which helps to clear Jesus Menendez. And there's also, at the end of the episode, we find out that Lisa Trammell has been arrested for the murder of Mitchell Bondurant, and that sort of jumps right into episode 3, which we don't get into today. And there's also various other dynamics and legal challenges that come up, mostly involving ethics, personal relationships, so on and so forth. So, the first issue we're going to get into is legal ethics, because why wouldn't we get into legal ethics? I will note that at least one of the main reasons why I decided to jump back into Season 2, not because I thoroughly enjoy Lincoln Lawyer generally. I'm not saying I enjoyed 1 and 2 here. We'll get into that later. But Jeff did mention to me separately that he stopped watching The Lincoln Lawyer because of these episodes. So why wouldn't we want him to discuss why he hates them so much and what the issues are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, enjoy.
So, episode 1, The Rules of Professional Conduct, ends with, I'm just going to play the conversation so that our listeners have the full context of what we're going to be discussing here and the conflict, in very big air quotes, that Micky is facing at the end of episode 1.
Nice view. I mean, the picture in the paper made it look good, but at night it really comes alive, don't you think?
Russell, what the fuck are you doing here?
I didn't want to break another window, so I hopped the fence. I gotta say, today was amazing. I mean, I know you're good, but that was something else.
Look, I don't know what you want exactly, but
Okay, you should probably hear me out. I mean, after all, you are my attorney. Paid an extra retainer just to make sure of that, so I think that I probably want what any client wants, Micky. I want your expert legal help. Being a lawyer, it comes with all sorts of duties and responsibilities, doesn't it? The duty of confidentiality. That's the big one, right? That's the one where anything I say becomes our little secret and you can't tell anybody, especially not the police.
Dun, dun, dun.
I recommend watching the show at
So-
1.5 speed.
Here's our little secret. Martha Renteria had it coming, bitch. Got exactly what she deserved. And then someone else went down for it, and he's about to go down for it again. But the best part is, now, there's nothing you can do about it.
broke into the house to trick me into representing you.
But I did a hell of a lot more than that, counselor. When your talk screen comes back, it's gonna show Rohypnol, all right? Roofing myself, just to make it look really good. Oh, come on, you gotta give me an A for effort for that. I had to get you to stop looking for me, and then it hit me. Why not kill two birds with one stone? You thought that if you found me, you could save, what's the guy's name? Menendez? Well, congrats, you found me, but you can't ever tell a soul about it, or I'll see that you're disbarred. And that's just for starters.
Are you threatening me, Russell?
Threatening you? Oh, no. I would never threaten you, even though I know where you live and that you have a family. I would never threaten you, because a threat would be the one circumstance where maybe you might be able to tell our little secret. So no, you can rest assured that you and your family are safe with me. Just our little secret is safe with you. Well,
How long is this quote? It keeps
see you
going.
around, counselor.
We're almost there. There we go. Okay, that was the end. I needed to have the whole thing so that everyone would have the full context.
I understand. What's funny is you're right. That's so slow. What's also funny is Her was the longest movie ever, and that's despite the fact that Scarlett Johansson speaks at 2x speed. When Jeff and I were doing the editing, Mike, we, as you know, put it on 1.5x, 2x speed to listen. We could understand ourselves fine. Scarlett Johansson, it might as well have
You're just
been-
defending. You're trying to defend your show. This is a terrible show. All right. I just want to point out, just because you say you're not threatening someone does not mean it's not a threat.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get there.
Okay.
I had to include it all the way to the end because that's when the threat happens. So when I first saw, I think I watched this episode the first time back when we were getting ready to do our first analysis of season 1. And I saw this, laughed uproariously, and then assumed that this is what season 2 is going to be about. That this is the overarching conflict of season 2. He's got to get Jesus Menendez cleared and connive some way to get this other client of his who has finagled this situation into the hands of the police. That is not what happens. This whole thing is resolved in the very next episode. But I want to say right up front, this does not present an ethical issue for Micky Haller at all. You just go to the cops. Let me walk through the various rules of professional evidence. We'll talk about why there's no conflict here. Yeah. So for starters, there's attorney-client privilege. Everyone's aware or should be aware of what attorney-client privilege is, but the specifics, I'll use the language directly from the California Evidence Code. This is section 952 of the California Evidence Code, if anyone wants to look it up. And it says that, as used in this article, confidential communication between a client and a lawyer, that is, the kind of communication that attorney-client privilege applies to, means information transmitted between a client and his or her lawyer in the course of that relationship and in confidence by a means which, so far as the client is aware, discloses the information to no third persons other than those who are present to further the interest of the client in the consultation or those to whom disclosure is reasonably necessary for the transmission of the information or the accomplishment of the purpose for which the lawyer is consulted, and includes a legal opinion formed and the advice given by the lawyer in the course of that relationship. He isn't there asking for legal advice. He has, I don't want to get into the crimes yet. He did not hire Micky Haller to represent him in that lawsuit. He has just shown up and announced that he committed a crime and then left.
And threatened him.
And threatened him, and I'm going to get there. I will get there. But from the start, I question whether this is confidential communication because, Derek, if I hired you to do some contract work and then just drop by your house, we're friends, I've been to your house, set aside the breaking and entering and whatnot, or hopping a fence. I showed up and said, hey, by the way, I killed somebody. Peace. Talk to you later.
No, you can't do anything.
Yeah. That's not how this works.
But Jeff, he had paid a retainer.
Right. He paid some indeterminate retainer for, I don't know,
legal work.
Usually when you pay a retainer, it's part of an arrangement where the attorney has clearly spelled out the scope of the representation, because that's how contracts work. You can't just, here's a check for $5,000 for whatever. That's not how these things work. And I'll say there is a case from 1995 from the California Supreme Court, People v. Gionis, Gionis, People v. Gionis. Significantly, a communication is not privileged, even though it may involve a legal matter, if it has no relation to any professional relationship of the attorney with the client. Moreover, it is not enough that the client seek advice from an attorney. Such advice must be sought from the attorney in his professional capacity. And again, he's not there seeking advice. He's also broken into Micky's house in the middle of the night to talk to him, which is not generally how attorneys have communications in their professional capacity.
Generally.
Not generally.
Occasionally.
So that's one particular reason why Micky could inform inform Griggs or any of the other officers that he interacts with that his client has confessed to this crime. Now, this episode is titled The Rules of Professional Conduct. And so I went and looked at the California Rules of Professional Conduct. And Professional Conduct Rule 1.6, Confidential Information of a Client, says a lawyer may, but is not required to, reveal information protected by Business and Professions Code Section 6068, which is basically material learned during the course of your representation of a client, to the extent that the lawyer reasonably believes the disclosure is necessary to prevent a criminal act that the lawyer reasonably believes is likely to result in death of or substantial bodily harm to an individual as provided in paragraph C. And paragraph C says that you have to make some good faith effort to dissuade the client from engaging in the criminal activity if reasonable under the circumstances. Micky is in the middle of being extorted. There is no reasonable way under the circumstances for him to be, hey, stop extorting me. And the client has and if Micky were to disclose this, that his client has come and confessed to the crime that Jesus Mendez is suspected by the police of committing, it would be in reporting the fact that someone has broken into his apartment, into his house, or onto his property at least, is extorting him, has threatened him within the scope of California criminal law, all of which are, especially when under the circumstances the person who's confessing is confessing to at least one violent murder, Micky would be justified in informing the police of that confession. So again, there are a number of cases from California analyzing the rules here. In particular, People v. Dang from 2001. Dang was convicted in this case of 16 counts of various things, including residential burglary, false imprisonment, assault with a firearm or deadly weapon, and dissuading a witness by force or threat. And I mentioned this in particular because of the whole conversation about, oh no, I'm not threatening you. That would be the one situation where you might be able to disclose this information.
And then he threatens him.
And then he threatens. He threatens him, then says he's not threatening them, and then continues to threaten his family.
Right.
Now, interestingly, if his threat, let's take away the breaking and entering. Let's say he had this conversation with Micky in his office. Let's say he had disclosed this and said, if you tell the cops this, I'll get you disbarred. That is something that he, as the client of an attorney, you can file an ethics complaint against an attorney and, let the chips fall where they may. That in and of itself may not have amounted to either criminal threats or even extortion, because that's something that he's legally allowed to do in the situation which he's describing. Hey, stop doing this or I'll sue you is not extortion. That's just how the legal system works. When he continues and goes on to,
He says he knows where he lives, he knows where your family lives,
right.
whatever.
I know where you live, I know where your family lives. All of that, and he says, I'll get you disbarred and I won't stop there.
A threat doesn't have to have the words "I'm threatening you" in it. It can just be, the old John Gotti example. It's like, oh, it's a nice place you have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, People v. Dang, the court specifically says the attorney testified that he believed he had a responsibility to inform the district attorney that the appellant had made threats against witnesses. In the first instance, appellant told the attorney, in essence, that he, quote, should not worry or get into trial preparation at an extensive level since there were other options that were being explored, primarily that one or more witnesses were either bought off or harmed. The attorney believed that the appellant was threatening two of the witnesses, but appellant did not name them. In a second conversation, appellant repeated his threats against the witnesses and also threatened Mr. Smith. The court, in analyzing exactly what happened there, concluded that the guy's statements were sufficient for the attorney to disclose the statements that were being made. There are a number of cases that get more specific. In People v. Mendoza, the court said that the determination of whether a defendant intended his words to be taken as a threat and whether the words were sufficiently unequivocal, unconditional, immediate, and specific, and this is within the context of the California criminal threats statute. So, there are additional cases where the courts lay out that exact point, Mike, that you don't need to have magic words or anything for it to clearly be a threat to harm people. In particular, within the context of California's extortion law, People v. Oppenheimer, the court said that an experienced extortionist does not find it necessary to designate specifically what he intends to do as a means of terrifying his prey. It was appropriately stated in People v. Sanders, blah, 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 that the more vague and general the terms of the accusation, the better it would subserve the purpose of the accuser in magnifying the fears in his victim, and the better also it would serve to protect him in the event of failure to accomplish his extortion of a prosecution for his attempted crime. No precise words are necessary to convey a threat. Conduct takes its legal color and quality more or less from the circumstances surrounding it. The circumstances here are unbelievably clear. So Micky has no reason to conceal this information or go to the lengths of taking the actions that he will take in the next episode to try and get out of this perceived conflict. Because in the next episode, he finagles a way for one of his other clients. And let me clarify here that Micky is representing three different people that are relevant here. There's Jesus Menendez, the guy who was convicted prior to season 1 of killing a sex worker, and then is exonerated and released and is going to be given a new trial. One of the reasons he's exonerated is because one of Micky's other clients, a sex worker named Glory Days, or Gloria Dayton is her full name, she was essentially intimidated by a vice officer into not testifying in the trial in favor of Jesus Menendez. She went on the run. Micky's now representing her. So she's a witness that supports one of his client's claims. Now he has a third client who is the person who he now knows actually committed the crime. So I just want to lay out what's going on here. He orchestrates a situation in which his new client, who I just refer to as Wish.com Paul Rudd, because he is Wish.com Paul Rudd. In which that Wish.com Paul Rudd learns that Glory Days has information, or Glory Days, who he knows has information about him, is going to be talking to the police and being released from custody as a result. So Wish.com Paul Rudd goes and does attack Glory Days, but Micky has asked the cops to protect her because of some other stuff that involved maybe a drug dealer who may threaten her. And so the cops bust in and save her from being killed by Micky's new client. And as a result, they learn that he is the actual killer. And I'm told, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you said this, none of this ever comes up again.
This is it. This is season 2. Season 2. So the whole thing about Jesus Menendez, Russell Lawson, any of this essentially is now done. Gloria Dayton, not so much, but that's a completely separate issue that has nothing to do with any of this. This is resolved at the end of episode 2, and then season 3 is entirely about, at least entirely, mostly about the Lisa Trammell murder case.
As I was watching this, I couldn't remember any of these characters from season 1, so I guess it's... I didn't have the energy to go look it up because I don't care about the show.
Happens. This is why we do this shit, guys. This is why we do this podcast, is to mostly irritate each other in our various pickings of movies and TV shows.
Yeah. So when I first watched the show, this is where I initially stopped watching, was immediately at the end of that scene that I just played in full. For the purposes of this episode, I went ahead and watched the next one, where Micky goes through all of the stuff I just described to get out of it. He goes through all of that because he's essentially told to by his dad's lawyer buddy, Legal Siegel. And I apologize, this is another kind of long clip, but I want to go through exactly what Micky tells Legal and what Legal tells him in response. So please bear with me.
Say there's a lawyer, a hypothetical lawyer.
Hypothetical, huh?
Yeah. So now the lawyer has a client who's been accused of murder. Now the lawyer's sure the client didn't do it. The evidence is all circumstantial, but still, it's not looking good.
Go on.
Now say the lawyer gets a new client.
A hypothetical new client.
Exactly. Now the lawyer represents this new client on something else, but then the new client drops a bombshell on him. Who confesses to a murder, and not just any murder, the exact same murder the innocent client's already been accused of. Yeah. So, under the circumstances, what can this hypothetical lawyer do about it?
Kid, there are pickles, and then there are pickles. And that's as sour as anyone I've ever heard.
Tell me something I don't know.
Well, first of all, you can't tell anybody, especially the cops.
You mean the hypothetical lawyer can't?
Yeah, right. Even if he doesn't get disbarred, which he will, but even if he doesn't, who the hell's going to hire a lawyer that rats out his clients? His career will be finished. But that's only half the problem. The worst part is the conflict of interest. You, the hypothetical lawyer, he's got to withdraw from representing the innocent client.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Well, there's no way around it. A lawyer owes every client the best defense he can give him. But this lawyer can't provide that. He's got the magic bullet in his hands. He knows who the real killer is, and he can't use it.
Yeah, but there are exceptions to confidentiality, right? I mean, this new client is a dangerous killer.
So, for defense attorneys, that's half their clientele. To reveal the confidence, it has to be a specific threat to a specific person. Did the client threaten this lawyer?
Not in so many words, no. In fact, he made a point not to threaten him.
Well, this guy's clever, which makes it all the worse.
Yeah, yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. No, he's not. This guy's really dumb. So I want to note a few things before I play the second half of that scene. Because Micky didn't tell him, hey, my client broke in to my apartment to tell me this. My client hired me on a totally unrelated matter. My client threatened my life and the life of my family in the process of telling me this. He didn't tell legal all of that. And also the legal gets wrong the standard for, did he threaten the client? It doesn't have to be, he told me he was Colonel Mustard and he was going to kill Scarlet with a, candlestick in the library. It doesn't have to go. He threatened very clearly several specific people, actually. And that would absolutely be enough here. So in order to help Micky get around this perceived conflict, legal advises him to do something else.
I mean, how does a hypothetical lawyer fix this mess without breaking any of the rules?
Well, theoretically, he's just got to make sure that none of this blows back on him. This hypothetical killer, is there anybody else that can point a finger at him? Anybody he might go after if he could?
There is one person.
You got to use him as bait, but you got to make sure the bait's protected. But the key to all of it is maintaining the confidentiality. You can't tell anybody what you're doing beforehand, especially not the police. You just point them in the right direction and get out of the way.
What if the client figures it out?
The hypothetical client, you mean? Well, as long as the hypothetical lawyer crosses all his T's, what's the hypothetical client going to do about it?
Okay.
By the way, also, I know they did the hypothetical thing to make it seem cool. They didn't need to do anything.
No, and also it's terrible writing because he's asking all of the right questions to just do a very specific plot point, but not actually give you the information you would need.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that someone can point the fingers and then saying, like, well, you have to use them as bait. Like, there could be so many other with just that little bit of information you have, there's so many other, like, maybe that person's not in the country. Maybe they're somewhere, like...
Yeah. And I'll note that, legal is an attorney. And
is he?
Surprisingly. And in doing research, I didn't pull the exact case, but I did find a case that said essentially that an attorney can disclose confidential information to their own attorney for the purposes of representing them. There is nothing that prevents Micky from going to legal to seek advice for what to do in this situation and explaining exactly what happened.
Or, as we've said a million times on this, call the ethics hotline.
Absolutely. And the ethics hotline, well, why didn't he call the ethics hotline? Because the ethics hotline would have been like, yeah, you tell the police. You don't have an ethical problem here.
There's not an issue. Don't worry about it. Like, just go to the police now. Save your client.
But by the way, a fun complete aside on David Legal Siegel is that in the books, when he, according to like Michael Connelly's books, when he retires as a lawyer, he places a phony obituary for himself in the California Law Journal, so previous clients wouldn't come find him.
Okay.
Just this is the kind of shit that happens in the books. Somehow I'm gonna throw it out. The books I think are actually worse than this show, and that says a lot.
That's interesting.
No, I will say, like, as we talked, I actually don't think in season 1 they get a lot of the ethics stuff wrong, but they blast it out of the water in a horrible way in episodes 1 and 2 in season 2.
Yeah.
Like, I actually like season 1 in the sense that they showed aspects of the trial that were like, they did voir dire in season 1, which is not something a lot of shows show. And that, honestly, if we keep going in season 2 here, you're going to see they do pretrial conferences and other things that are not normally shown. They just fail on the ethics here.
Yeah, and I'll note that in season 1, in our discussion, and I think the first episode we did about Lincoln Lawyer, I talked at some length about the ethics around when you are an attorney who has a substance use disorder, and that Micky, in those circumstances, seems to have done what he should have done, which was withdraw while he recovered until he was at the point where he was competent to practice law again. Right. So the show is capable of getting these things right. I wanted to play that second half of the conversation in particular because what legal is telling him to do in order to avoid violating, presumably, and based on what Micky has told him, violating Rule 1.6, because legal doesn't, until the very end of the conversation, legal doesn't know about the threats, but he gets that wrong. He just assumes two were sitting in his office, client confessed to this crime.
All right.
In order to avoid violating Rule 1.6, he essentially instructs Micky to violate several other rules of ethics. In particular, Rule
Use your own client as bait.
Right.
Yep.
So your new potential client can potentially try to kill your client.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, leaving both of your clients out completely to shit. And I'll get into a little bit more about him allowing them to go interview with the cops. But yeah.
So Rule 1.2.1, advising or assisting the violation of the law, says a lawyer shall not counsel a client to engage or assist a client in conduct that the lawyer knows is criminal, fraudulent, or a violation of any law, rule, or ruling of a tribunal. What did Micky do in order to arrange for Wish.com Paul Rudd to attack Glory Days? He set on his desk, he set some paperwork for Wish.com Paul Rudd next to the papers for the Glory Days case, with the intention that his client would see the documents related to Glory Days and act as he did. So that's a violation.
Right. Those papers showing that she was being released from jail and showing her home address, probably.
Presumably. Yeah. And I just want to pause. So he puts those two documents on his desk under the assumption that Wish.com Paul Rudd is going to be led into his office, go into his office without Lorna or anybody, and pick up the documents and also rummage around through some other papers.
Yeah, the writing's not very good, Jeff.
well, as you may have seen from episode 1, early episode 2, Warner just lets him into his office and goes, "I think he's going through your stuff."
Yeah.
You're not great at your job.
No. She's
now. I guess that was the implication that he would do it again.
Yeah,
but wouldn't you, as the one, and we'll get into this as well, the one lawyer in a legal office, tell your staff, "Don't let him into my goddamn office. I have a waiting room that's right there.
Don't let anybody into my office while I'm not in there." How about that?
How about you lock my office?
Yeah. And the other, so he's representing these two people, or these three people. Let's assume that he continues with his representation of Wish.com Paul Rudd. You have a duty of diligence under California Rule 1.3 to all of your clients, regardless of whether or not you disclose any of their confidential information. A lawyer shall not intentionally, repeatedly, recklessly, or with gross negligence fail to act with reasonable diligence in representing a client. Reasonable diligence shall mean that a lawyer acts with commitment and dedication to the interests of the client and does not neglect or disregard or unduly delay a legal matter entrusted to the lawyer. Whether or not he reveals any confidences, he's actively working against the interests of one of his clients. Now, yes, it's in the interests of two of his other clients, including Jesus Mendez, who is and is not his client, according to him at various points in these episodes.
Yeah, it's a little unclear.
Without him ever telling Jesus Mendez that he has disclaimed any representation of him, which is unbelievable.
In itself a problem.
Yeah. So this,
by the way, I wish I could do that. Can I just say I don't represent people when it's convenient to me to not represent them?
Yeah.
Because honestly, there's a few. And by the way, to any of my clients listening, it's not you.
It's the other guy.
All right. So I have commandeered this conversation for a while. Suffice to say, this was enough to make me stop watching this show. The fact that it's resolved in such a stupid way, and in a single episode in such a stupid way. Like, if it was going to be this stupid, please drag it out over a while, But the fact that the next episode didn't open with him talking to Griggs and saying, "Hey, I found the guy. You're not going to believe what happened."
Well, so that was actually what I was going to ask you, Jeff. So in a hypothetical scenario, where American Atheist folds tomorrow or fires you or you quit and then you move to California and open up a criminal defense firm that has been gifted to you by a guy who died. And you win a huge trial soon thereafter and get all the glory, and this happens to you. This happens to you at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. What do you do at 6 a.m. on Wednesday?
I mean, I'm not sure I would wait till 6 a.m. on Wednesday. Like, as soon as the guy leaves,
so what would you
I'm
do?
on the
So what would you do at 10:01 p.m. on Wednesday or on Tuesday?
I would call the prosecutor on the case, probably, and say, I found your guy. I'd call Griggs. I'd call my ex-wife, who's also a prosecutor. I don't know if I'd call all of them, but I would immediately report this. You've been the victim of a crime.
Right.
Like, you have been threatened. You have been extorted. You've had a burglary.
If you're genuinely concerned about the ethics implication, you can hire an ethics attorney, get an opinion for them, saying that you can do this, and you can always fall back on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't know if that's what you were going for, Mike, but
it's just like that. That's the emergency backup if you're really worried about this as an ethics situation. It's not. You shouldn't be, but like just in case, it would not be an unreasonable thing to do.
Right. Well, and that was where I was sort of getting to, Jeff, is that, again, none of us are criminal defense lawyers, so that with that caveat, if this happened to me, I'm not sure if I can immediately make the phone calls you just said, because I think my head would be spinning with the amount of shit happening.
Oh, well, I mean, sure. Yes. We're factoring out the trauma of being threatened and all of, yeah.
I will say on the threat note, it's like in the moment when somebody's saying something like that to you, are you going to remember verbatim what they said? And if you don't remember verbatim, is it going to be easy to tell the cops that it was a threat? Probably
so that's what I was going to say. And that's, I think, sort of the thing is that, like, and this is all thinking about, like, listen, we spend hours thinking about something that happened on a fucking TV show.
Right.
So, like, but in the ideal situation, I likely, I rearm my security system real heavily very quickly, write down on a notepad every single thing that he said to me to try to remember what had happened. Just for my own edification, and also to be like, this is what I like when you show the cops or whoever, this is what he said to me. This is literally what I wrote down the second he left my house.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what I think he probably did was contacted legal and say, let's meet tomorrow morning and watch some shitty tennis while I tell you about this. Now, again, I don't think legal's the right person. So my first phone call. So here's the thing. In this situation, if it was me, I'm not sure if I call anyone that night because I'm not sure if my brain is operating correct enough to do it. However, there is a call to the Washington, D.C. legal ethics hotline to be like, hey, here's what I want to do. I need you to tell me that this is what I should be doing. And the thing I should be doing is what you just said. Contacting probably my prosecutor, my first wife prosecutor, contacting Griggs, otherwise making statements and being like, so I got the guy. Maybe I have to withdraw from being Jesus Menendez's lawyer because I have factual information.
Yeah.
But that's really going to help my guy.
Yeah.
So I call up my favorite defense attorney friend to take over Jesus Menendez's case while I testify.
Yeah. It's unclear to me whether you'd even have to withdraw as Jesus's attorney.
Well,
that might be a cross the T's, dot the I's situation.
Yeah.
Like,
and also the matter
tough.
at that point would be done.
Yeah.
Well, right, theoretically. And then we don't have to get into the fact that he dumbly let his client go talk to Griggs for no fucking reason. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, no, I'm with you. Obviously, there's things he could have done and should have done. It's really interesting because, like, you can obviously, the show tries to get into this whole, like...
None of those things are what he does do, to be clear. Like,
fair enough. The show, the one thing he probably does is contact legal and say, meet me tomorrow morning so we can have iced teas on the patio watching tennis.
By the way,
whatever.
In public, like, he has no whatever he says to legal is not confidential in any way.
Unless everyone there is one of their employees.
Or deaf.
And can't read lips.
Yeah. It's not smart. Anyway.
So speaking of him having his other clients talk to the cops in questionable ways.
Well, yeah. So let's jump right into the fact that the next dumb thing he does is, so he finds out that Griggs, and actually play the clip, Jeff, where Griggs tells him that he's now in charge of the Jesus Menendez case.
I've got a schedule to keep, Griggs. What's this about?
Your other client, Jesus Menendez.
What about him?
Well, you pretty much humiliated the department and the DA's office when you got him released.
No, I think they did a pretty good job at that themselves.
Either way, they're not taking it lying down. They're formally reopening the case.
I knew it. It's not enough to convict the wrong guy once. They've got to double down.
They needed somebody from LAPD to head up the reinvestigation. Somebody with a clean rep. Wasn't part of the original case.
You.
I don't love this either, but I don't give the orders.
What you need to do is find the real guy. The guy with the tattoo my witness talked about.
Tattooed man your witness has no name for. Who may not even exist.
He exists. My investigator's been looking for him. But look, you can put all your resources on it. Come on, at least talk to Glory Days.
I'll talk to her. I'll talk to whoever I need to. But I need to start with your client, Menendez.
What, you want me to voluntarily bring my client to the glass house? No way.
I told you, I don't like this either. So, bring your guy in tomorrow. If the story adds up, maybe I can short-circuit this thing before they bring charges.
So, two quick responses to things that were discussed in there other than the actual legal part. One is, honestly, Mickey's entirely right. Police department screwed that up themselves. Mickey did not do anything. Their detective and their vice cop threatened a witness to go away and were basically like, there's no scenario in the planet where Mickey's the bad guy in that situation.
Sure.
So that's step one. So I agree with him on that. Step two, he said, you want me to voluntarily bring my client down to the glass house. I had never heard of the glass house before, so I did some quick look. Fun fact, the glass house was actually the unofficial nickname of the Parker Center, which was the former headquarters of the LAPD in real life. So
Interesting.
Now, it was demolished in 2019 and it is no longer the LAPD headquarters.
Oh, and this came out in 2023. So
this came out in 2023. Okay. So in some ways it's not correct, but I did find it interesting that it was the nickname for the LAPD headquarters. And actually the glass house comes from the jail itself, not the outside windows. The jail itself, apparently there were no bars in the cells. It was actually shatterproof glass.
Okay.
So that's how it came to be known as the glass house. But I found that a little interesting that it was like based on sort of real life things, but not, even if it wasn't dated correctly.
I wonder if the new headquarters is just out of convenience still referred to as the glass house.
I looked it up and nothing I could tell.
Okay.
But anyway, but I did find it interesting because he said the glass house. I'm like, is that like a term? Because not that I'm in the criminal world very often, but it didn't seem like that was a term. And the answer is no, that's not a term, but it's a term for the specific LAPD thing.
Also, one thing that struck me, and this isn't a legal question, it's more of a legal practice question, but when you're in this situation, you are a well-known, now very well-known criminal defense attorney. You have a client who has been not exonerated, but at least had his.
Well, yeah. I mean, he had his habeas
right.
petition granted, right? Yeah,
right. He's been he's had his conviction overthrown, in part because of misconduct by the police. He would be entirely within his rights to be like, no, you come to my office. I will have my client in my office, and we'll all sit down.
And well, here's what's interesting about that. So what I find interesting is Griggs says, I need to start with your client. That makes zero sense.
Sure.
Like you do your, like he's literally restarting an investigation. Now, granted, as part of that investigation, yes, you normally do talk to people who are potential witnesses or whatever. Here's the thing. Menendez is represented by Holler. And apparently Griggs has already sort of decided that like he's at least a person of interest in some capacity, right? Now, Griggs implies he's not.
Right.
And basically says, let me short circuit this before they bring charges. The biggest tool in a criminal defense lawyer's toolbox is the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is the best tool. The relevant part of the Fifth Amendment says that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That is the one thing that you have on the criminal side that you don't have on the civil side, is that you don't have to say shit. You don't have to be interviewed. You do not have to be deposed. You do not have to testify at your case. And in fact, most of the time, they do not, because any little inconsistency is going to show that you're a liar, and then they goes further and further and further. And that is exactly the issue that would have come up and did come up in this sort of interview, is that even in a semi-informal setting where your lawyer is present, anything he says can be used against him.
Sure.
I assume they're recording because, again, they're at fucking police headquarters.
Yep. No, that's...
And like you said, if you're going to do it in your own damn office where nothing is recorded and you have full access to everything and can kick him out at any moment.
Yeah. And I'm sad that I didn't say right up front, like, he's not under any obligation to talk to the cops. Just not. Yeah.
Why would he talk to anyone? And like, maybe there's a situation where an attorney would facilitate the interview if they are absolutely certain the client can provide verifiable, unequivocal evidence that would clear them. One, not the case here. Like what he said, what he basically says is already something that's been presented. There's another person that has a tattoo. Jesus does not have a tattoo. Done. But even in that situation, you've got to find another way to get that information in, right? You would give it to him in discovery, or you would have a witness talk to them or whatever. Now, what Glory Days does, that is sort of something closer to what you would do on behalf of your client, but Glory Days is also his client.
Right.
Now, let's take away the fact that from what I can tell, she still has, like, well, by the way, she's in like prison clothes. So she's currently being held for the other thing.
Yeah.
That's for the cocaine possession.
Right.
Potentially intent to distribute. So she's in prison. How she gets a meeting with Griggs that Micky doesn't facilitate is a completely different question that I really don't even need to get into because it's already insane enough as it is. But having her talk to Griggs without him present, because he doesn't technically represent her in this thing, stepping back, let's assume she wasn't in prison for the cocaine distribution, whatever. I wouldn't have an issue with her going because he doesn't represent her on that issue. She's just providing witness testimony. In and of itself, that interview is okay. But the fact that she's in jail for something else and you're willingly having her talk to the cops, wouldn't you be a little worried that they're like, actually, we're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about the thing that we found you with all this coke on you? Like, that would have been the bigger issue I would have had. Is I wanted to be there to make sure the cops don't go outside of what they actually want to talk to her about.
Sure.
Because that interview went about as well as it could have for Jesus, but Micky has no clue that's going to happen. Griggs just fucked him over.
Yeah.
Maybe a day before by bringing his client in under the sort of auspices of like, let me clear your guy. And then he destroys him with this sort of knife thing that ends up not being a big deal because we find out that's Russell Lawson, but nevertheless.
And by the way, cops are allowed to lie to you, to get you to confess, to get you to come in, to like, they're allowed to lie to lawyers. Like there's no...
We have talked about this. We've talked about this on many other episodes, and I'm sure we're going to get into it again even more, is that cops can lie. They can say, well, we got your contributor like next door. They're going to flip unless you flip. Like that happens all the time, and that's perfectly fine. So anyway, short version, if Micky is supposedly this great defense lawyer, and by the way, in season 1, he has proved himself to be even when he hasn't done cases in 2 years, he's proven himself to know what he's doing. He's proven himself to know the rules. He's proven himself to defend his clients very well. He fucks this up real bad.
Yeah.
Like, never would he, if he was thinking clearly, allow Jesus Menendez to go down for a non-custodial interview. If he had allowed Glory Days to talk, now that he represents her, he would 100% want it to be there. Now, what's interesting is the reason he doesn't want to be there for her is that he's no longer on the Jesus Menendez case, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Even if that's true, he could still be there as her legal representative to make sure the cops don't go out of line.
Yeah, because she's facing
Now-
charges. Like,
Right. She's facing other charges. Now, again, the show tries to make this whole, like, you know, horrible ethical quandary rock in a hard place that he can't that, like, in legal says it. It was in your quote in the
what, there are pickles and there are pickles?
well, that part, and then he says you have to withdraw from representing the other client.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's interesting is if that's true, clearly you could withdraw from representing the current client, even in a scenario where Russell Lawson has hired you for the thing, which he hasn't.
Right.
So apparently, this is a new legal ethics thing that I'm not aware of, which is that if you have a client and then someone else has decided to retain you, and apparently you don't have the say over that, they've just retained you by handing your paralegal money.
Yep.
Evidently, how it works is that you have to withdraw from all the clients that are conflicted against him. Anyway, it just adds to the stupidity of all of it.
Yeah. Now, you'd probably have to disclose, like, let's say all this goes down and what we describe, how we describe it should have gone down happens. If somehow Jesus was not aware that this had happened, or Glory Days was not aware that this had happened, you would need to disclose to them that this had happened, I think, because for a brief time, you unknowingly did represent someone in, like, direct conflict with their interests. So I think you'd at least need to let them know and get their okay on it, I think. And even if that's not specifically required by the rules,
We've concocted a legal ethics issue where if someone gives you a retainer and then you're conflicted out of other clients because of that person, apparently you have to withdraw from all the clients you've had for years because this new person gave you a retainer.
yes. And what I'll say is that in this situation, if the other clients that this impacted were somehow not aware that it had happened, you would need to disclose it to them and get their okay that you continue representing them.
I was going to say, that's the big difference is that, like, he doesn't say shit to Jesus or to Glory Days. He just basically says, he doesn't tell him anything, or he says, I don't need to be there for that. Even if we assume that weird legal quandary that's come up is like an actual quandary, because he's this other guy, Wish.com Paul Rudd, has given him a retainer, according to the preeminent David Legal Siegel, you now have to withdraw from your other clients.
Yeah.
Because there's a conflict.
Yeah.
Not you have to withdraw from the guy that just tried to retain you, even in the scenario where he retained you for the actual murder.
And I think even the reason that legal gives for him needing to withdraw is like, well, the best defense is that you know who did it. And since you can't do that, then you can't give him the best defense. So you have to withdraw. Like, that's not what, like,
that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make any sense at all. And by the way, the one thing that I did have to think about for a little bit was the whole, like, who would hire a defense attorney who rats out his own clients? That's not what he's doing.
No.
Right.
Like, and again, as we've said, nothing here is confidential. He would be able to do another interview with Jake Tapper and explain what the hell happened.
This guy threatened me. It's crazy.
A guy literally tried to threaten me and claim that, oh, you now represent me, so I can't help you out. No, asshole. Mm-hmm. I know legal ethics better than you, a non-lawyer, do, and therefore I'm going to put you in jail for 100 years because you've effectively admitted to me that you murdered someone.
Yeah.
It isn't confidential because it wasn't based on my representation of you.
Yep.
Hi everyone, Derek here with a brief message. The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by my law firm, Morlaw PLLC. One of Morlaw PLLC's many practice areas is business law. If you are a business owner or someone who is thinking of starting up a new or side business, you need a legal team who can efficiently provide you legal counsel, keeping you and your business away from potential legal issues, and if necessary, representing you in any disputes that do arise. We pride ourselves on being cost efficient while also getting to know our clients. If you want less stress and more support, you need more law. If you would like to set up a free consult, please click on the link in the show notes, visit our website, www.mooreatty.com, that's mooreatty.com, or email us at contact@mooreatty.com. And now, back to the show.
And I guess the last ethics thing for the day is whether or not it's okay to sleep with your clients. Which, spoiler,
Right.
it's not. This is pretty basic stuff, but it's Rule 1.8J. A lawyer shall not have sexual relations with a client unless a consensual sexual relationship existed between them when the client-lawyer relationship commenced. So in this case, Micky has sex with this woman right before they begin working together as an attorney-client relationship. Would that mean that they're okay?
I don't know, but I know you should be able to put a stop to all that.
Well, I tried calling the building department. They don't do anything.
Then you need a lawyer.
Oh.
Not me. I don't do real estate law, but I know some good ones.
If they're good, they're expensive. I'm overextended as it is.
Let me see if I can get somebody to cut you a break. Listen, I really need to go now, but is it okay if I call you?
You know where to find me. And you gave me your business card, so.
I really am out of practice, huh? All right.
And this is right after they slept together, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in theory, he's fine. This happened right afterwards. Except that it's so close in time that if it ever became an issue, it would be enough of a headache that you should absolutely not do it. Just think about how would this come up? It would come up because probably the client is unhappy with him, and they report it to the ethics board. Yep. And they would say, "Oh no, we had a relationship before. We had a client or attorney-client relationship before we had sex." And then you have to go back and try and prove otherwise. And Micky's already somebody who's had ethics issues before, as we talked on with the substance abuse issues. Mm-hmm. Not that scars you forever, but it does mean that he would probably get a closer look for any ethics complaint that comes afterwards. It's just messy enough that you should always avoid this. If obviously, at some point if you're an attorney, you might represent your family in some issue, you might represent a loved one in some issue. You probably don't want to jump in and represent somebody you just met like that, especially in a relationship. And I have not watched the later episodes, but as we see at the end of this episode, she is charged with a murder. I'm guessing that she probably did it. It seems like that's the red herring there.
Derek, did you say that season 3 is about the trial of Trammell?
Sorry, the whole rest of season 2 is about.
Okay. Did she do it?
Is about her.
Can we spoil it for everyone?
Huge spoiler alert for if you haven't watched. So do the whole na thing with your fingers in your ears. She didn't.
Oh, okay. I thought she did it.
That's not to say she didn't do some version of murder.
Oh.
But she did not kill Mitchell Bondurant.
My favorite thing about the show is that the bad guys aren't just like it's not just that his clients did the crime. It's that they're actually supervillains. They're just evil, maniacal. Like, I've killed a bunch of people. Wait till you find.
Spoiler alert over. So right. It's sorry, Jeff. If I said season 3, it's my apologies. Season 2 is the is mostly her trial, with obviously other things popping up, which are, and I think Jeff, you watched a few episodes with me. There's some entertaining things that pop up, but but yeah, it's mostly about. It's kind of similar to season 1, where the Trevor Elliott trial dominates most of season 1. Her trial dominates most of season 2.
Okay.
I should double back, and this is like one of the more common tropes that we do see in these is like attorneys sleeping with their clients. Like in real life, you should never do this unless it's like you representing your wife.
Well, and even then, I'd have a hard time, right?
If it were something mild, I have
traffic ticket.
Yeah, I have I had a friend not someone I've slept with, but I've had friends come to me and ask me for help on a real estate issue, and it's sure, whatever. I can give you 10 minutes of my time for nothing.
Yeah. No, fair enough. But let's be honest. If a scenario where my wife gets sued for something, you would, even if it's in my wheelhouse, I would not want to do.
That's fair. Yeah. Any significant issue, you would probably be better finding the right person for it.
I would find the right person for it. Now, granted, I'd be very active,
Yeah.
and certainly would be like, a very active,
Yep.
interested party as part of the litigation. But I would not want to be the person named on any of the stuff or making the final legal decision.
And it makes sense in these shows or these movies why they do it. It's like, oh yes, we want to have who's getting the most screen time. We need to have our main character have a love interest. Okay, they match with the other person that has the most screen time.
And by the way, the rule that you quoted, Mike, 1.8J, like, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right? The lawyer, generally speaking, a lawyer holds a position of power and influence. The person they're representing is typically being represented during a crisis of some sort. Like, there is a complete emotional vulnerability, and they are dependent on their on their lawyer's advice to sort of move forward.
Yeah.
To add that whole sex component to it would just fling the whole profession into a whole different area. So yeah, it all makes perfect sense. It also, like, it's also why they have to have the rule, because anytime you work together, people of the opposite sex and or people that you are attracted to, it is in some way going to sort of go in a direction of you have a more intimate relationship. They really need to prevent that from happening, or else it's going to lead to a real big issue. So yeah, no, and I agree. I think the way you said, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, he probably is technically abiding by the rule, but it's still a bad thing.
Yes, by just the bare reading of that rule. Now, there's probably, we can probably find some explanations or examples where like it has gone the other way, just because it is so close in time, and also like a thing that we deal with really all the time in all of our lives, but also specifically when we're dealing with the laws. You only get a pinhole view of anyone's view of the world. Like your view of the universe is what's coming through your eyes and your ears, and nothing else. And then when your attorney's dealing with that, it's you giving the words to what you saw and what you heard. Same thing with an ethics complaint. Is like you're only getting this little explanation and that little explanation, and the ethics board has to piece together what happened. And unless there's documentary evidence that like, oh no, they had sex right before it commenced or right afterwards, they're using a judgment call of like, okay, this attorney's never had another issue. This is the one complaint ever. It's a one-time citation. Like maybe we'll give him a slap on the wrist. But in this case, Micky Holler's had other issues in the past. They might come down a little bit harder. I would never like. You shouldn't go into this expecting like, oh well, if I get punished, it'll be a slap on the wrist. But like, there is the thing where like the ethics board is going to be determining the facts based on what they get.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I want to add just one thing to that, Mike. Early on in this discussion, you said the one situation in which this might come up is where Trammell is dissatisfied with her legal representation, and that's true. You're correct, and I wanted to flag that under Rule 1.8.10. 1.8.10c, if a person other than the client alleges a violation of the rule, so some third party, no notice of disciplinary charges may be filed by the state bar against the lawyer until the state bar has attempted to obtain the client's statement regarding whether or not the client will be unduly burdened, and also, whether this was the case, whether they started their relationship before or after. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now, one question, Mike, how is his advice regarding the temporary restraining order?
Oh, what was his advice about the TRO?
Oh, yeah. Like,
well, so it wasn't even about the TRO. It was more about the restraining order.
Oh, so from my recollection, and I don't know if we have the recording of that, it's that she doesn't have to move if he comes within 300 feet of her, which that's true.
Correct.
Now it becomes an issue when like he knows that she's going to go be at a place at a certain time and harassing her. By the way, another trope, the evil developer who's ruining the neighborhood. Also saw that. We saw that in Daredevil also. Probably some other things.
We get to keep adding to our list of tropes.
This one drives me nuts more than anything. The evil developer is like, oh yes, in a city that like desperately needs housing, the worst thing that could happen is someone build more houses.
One thing that he does tell her in the TRO conversation is like, oh, if you drive within 300 feet of his office, then like if you're just going by, that's okay. Just don't hold any protests there, I think is what he says. And I'm not sure that's true. I'm not like, I don't know. I didn't look up California law on this.
No, it vaguely passes the smell test just because, like, I imagine incidental, like you're both on the highway at the same time, like if you weren't actively trying to follow the person.
Sure, but this is where she knows where his office is.
Yeah.
And
wasn't this where she said she goes to a farmer's market that's like near his office or something?
Yeah.
It's like, it's California. Find another goddamn farmer's market.
Yeah.
Right.
Like million supermarkets.
Listen, I know very little about LA other than the fact that if you find one farmer's market, I'm confident you can find another one. Or if you've developed the relationships with the people there, I'm confident they can deliver directly to your restaurant.
Yeah, you're probably ordering enough food that you could call them ahead of time and be like, hey, you got the good tomatoes.
Right. Also, by the way, if you're using a farmer's market to get your food for your restaurant, try again. Like, try to go direct. Like, maybe call that farm up and have them go directly to you or something.
Yeah, at one point she says she grows all the spices all the herbs that she uses in her cooking, like on the patio where everyone's eating.
Well, it sounds like it's just cilantro from what I can tell. But anyway.
But her ex-husband hated cilantro.
She grows all her own herbs, and they're all cilantro. Yeah, it's interesting. The one other issue I want to touch upon very quickly is you can tell in episodes 1 and 2, and I think it keeps going in sort of 3, 4, and 5 that Micky's firm is growing real quick, and they're not handling it great.
Yeah.
Which I will say, this is a real thing, right? It is a real thing that, and I'm constantly dealing with it right now, where I am a solo lawyer who there are days where I function as my firm's own paralegal, administrator, associate, partner, my own ethics lawyer, like everything else. And at some point, you do need to hire people. And I do have a part-time research attorney. I do have a part-time paralegal that help me out. What's a little interesting here, and Mike, I'm going to ask you in a second sort of how your firm operates, but he is currently operating on a 1-to-3 ratio, at least in episodes 1 and 2, where it's 1 attorney for 3 staff members. Most firms I'm aware of operate more in a sort of 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, more attorneys to staff members. Now, it depends what you do. So, like, I'm thinking of, like, with my big firm, even with my sort of small firm that did real estate construction, we operated anywhere from a, like, 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1, depending upon what you define as staff members. Mike, what are you guys operating as? So,
good question. My current firm, I actually don't have a good count for everybody because we're big enough that I don't actually have a good count for every attorney.
Sure.
My old place was very heavily staff because we had a lot of staff prepping documents.
Okay.
Yeah, we had there were a lot of complaints that like the first draft was done by the staff and then an attorney would come in and look at it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's what it seems like he's doing, right? Like it seems like he's basically giving
the name The Lincoln Lawyer. And I have not read the books, but the vibe I get from the movie and the show is like these are the attorneys who were handling a high volume of work in a small firm, bouncing from courthouse to courthouse, and that's
right.
And like I have not done criminal work, but I've done the like let me drive all over Pennsylvania and New York, Pennsylvania and New Jersey because I'm bouncing between 5 different courthouses. I might be in, I might be in 3 courthouses in a day, and like have my paralegal send me the documents the night before for everything. Then like that is a working class. Like there's a lot of attorneys that do that.
Right. Now, what's confusing to me is why does he not have that other attorney to handle that crap?
Yeah, it would be
because that's the thing. If you are a high profile,
at this point, if he's handling that many cases and he can charge whatever he wants, you should have at least another body to like make appearances. Like you don't have to handle the trial. You're going to be going for the small motions.
That's what I was going for. Is that okay? So he's got a staff of 3. I don't think for a criminal defense firm, the 1-to-3 is honestly that far off. Like your staff's handling intakes, your staff's handling all the document stuff. They're even preparing potentially initial drafts of things.
And they have an investigator.
I get that. Right. And again, the investigator makes some sense, especially in the criminal defense firm, if he's getting more and more cases. What does not make sense is that he doesn't have an associate to handle those.
Yeah. Especially
the appearances.
Like, now, if the only cases he's handling are all the cases we see, then sure, it makes no sense to have another attorney. But it seems like they're getting all the work they can handle. They're all super busy.
Yeah.
Warren is freaking out. Izzy's freaking out.
They should have
right.
2 associates making most of the appearances, and then like he'll handle the serious trials.
Let me play this clip because it's relevant to a comment I'm about to make.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I got to take this. Hey, Lorna. What's going on?
How much longer are you going to be?
I don't know. I think we're almost done. Why?
Because you have a jam-packed day, and they're still finishing that renovation you spent a fortune on, and the phone here has been ringing off the hook. Hold on. Hi, law offices, please hold.
The price of success, Lorna. Just tell me where I need to be.
Okay, you have the Ortiz sentencing, status conference.
So, in season 1, the office is really nice already. And if you have enough money to do a major renovation of your office, I think before you do that, you hire a new attorney.
Right.
That made no sense to me at all.
The show seems to be forgetting that it is called the Lincoln Lawyer, and like it's making it more of a traditional law show.
And his new renovated office has 2 offices. He's got 2 side-by-side offices that are both his office, because Wish.com Paul Rudd is shown into one office. But then the next day, his documents are left on Micky's desk in a different office. Like, I don't understand.
This is what happens when you watch a show like this too carefully. You notice the details.
Plus, he's got a nice conference room.
Right.
That,
and like these are good things to have. Like, even if you're a small firm, like it's good to have a place that you can do a deposition. It's good to have
listen, I would love it if my firm had access to what we have here. I also am confident I need at least 3 more lawyers to make enough money to be able to come close to actually being able to do what I want to do.
Right. When I was in private law practice, I was the associate in a 2-person firm. It was me and the partner. Now, we shared office space with a larger firm, and by larger, I mean it had 2 partners, and they actually did have 3 staff because they did a lot of real estate work, and there was real estate work and estate / guardianship stuff, and there was a lot of support work that had to go into that, a lot of paperwork, a lot of bookkeeping, and so in that context, it made sense. But it's also, these are both situations where they're 2 attorneys. And with my firm, 2 attorneys before any support staff has been brought on.
Right. Well, and again, with being a criminal defense, and none of us are criminal defense lawyers, but you may need a little bit more staff because you're doing a lot of intakes. You're doing a lot of sort of like, it's a lot of figuring stuff out on the document side, looking, having your investigator get all of he actually even says this later on in season 2, like Cisco does all of his process serving. He does all of his investigation. Like he basically is his go-to vendor for all the things that I would hire externally to do.
Gotcha.
Right. Which in some ways makes sense. And I'm sure it is, efficient. And it also feels like Cisco's doing more like some paralegal crap and other stuff too, to like sort of help with the office. There is no scenario where Micky is able to do all of his appearances in order to make the money he's supposedly making. Like, he's got to have an associate to do those appearances.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense. However, the concept of growing too quick is a thing. Like, the perfect example I have in my brain is the Cochran firm. After the OJ case, Cochran sort of put himself out as like America's lawyer, quote unquote, and ended up sort of joining together with a couple other people to make a 4-named partner firm that I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. And then they grew into like 125 attorneys within a few years. From what I've read, they had a lot of growing pains. And when he passed away in 2005, the firm was kind of a disaster.
Interesting.
Because they didn't know what direction they were going in.
Growing too fast.
Well,
Probably didn't
there was
have
a whole
good succession
thing.
planning.
Yeah, maybe not. And and by the way, like those are all things that a lot of firms deal with. Shoot, there's a couple big firms that have dealt with that issue.
Yeah.
But one thing that you do need to figure out is like if you're going to grow quick, the way you grow is you have to cover everything, and one lawyer cannot handle all the things that they are presenting. If Warren is that busy, they need a second lawyer. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Lorne is putting everybody on hold and never talking to anybody. In the actual phone.
Lorna has never talked to a client. She's got 9 million people on hold. They've got all the lines. Anyway, any other issues to discuss, guys?
This show sucks.
Excellent. Let's get into it.
Mike, take it away.
Sure. These were the best 2 episodes of the show I've seen. I don't like this show very much. This is very mediocre. It's mediocre to bad. It gets all of the law wrong, so it gets a thumbs down there. It wasn't as offensively wrong as it could have been, but it's wrong. And I just don't think it's well written. I think they like repeatedly run into issues where it's like, oh, the writing here, the issue is the writing is bad. So yeah, thumbs down on both counts.
Well, for me, on the law, I think it did get it offensively wrong, as you can tell from my, rather heated discussion of the fact that the ethical dilemma he faces is not an ethical dilemma.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. And on entertainment value, it's not something that I would watch outside the context of this show. So I'm also going to say no. I'm not a big fan of the way they structure the series generally. Like why they set up what seems like a season long big bad for Micky and then deal with that immediately in episode 2, and it never comes up again. Also, during this episode, Lorna is dealing with a thing at her law school where she has to get a signature on a form from a professor
that nowhere.
Made
Does that
advances
relate to
on
anything
her.
that had ever happened before?
And at least according to what Derek tells me, this never comes up again.
It gets briefly resolved in episode 3 and again never comes up.
Which, why are we wasting time on that? Like, what did it add to? I mean, it doesn't really even develop Lorna's character at all. We already knew because
She was a really good law student.
Because Cisco, yeah, but we knew that, and Cisco, has her back to an extreme degree, which we knew that already. Like, we learned no new information through any of that interaction.
Right.
So I'm a no. No and no. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I mean, listen, I love the Lincoln Lawyer all 3 seasons. This is my least favorite 2 episodes.
Okay.
So when I first watched these 2 episodes, I honestly had a moment of, am I going to keep watching this show? So I was actually not far off from Jeff, although I did keep watching, curiosity got me. I actually think the rest of season 2, listen, I'm not going to say you guys are going to love it, and I'm going to force you to watch it, so be prepared. But I think it's better. And again, it's sort of similar to season 1 where you have this one overarching trial, and I do think they get into some interesting issues at trial. Whether they're realistic, we'll obviously get into. I have my thoughts, but we can sort of get to that point. I'm fine being a no on both, honestly, because they are my least favorite 2 episodes, and they get the law hilariously wrong. What is really interesting, and I do go to Jeff's point, is that these are basically the introductory 2 episodes to get to the real part of the season 2, which again does not make much sense. Like they need two,
which is Lorna going back to law school. Just 100% a law school show.
Sure. I will say, spoiler alert, she does get her law degree and becomes a lawyer and passes the bar exam. Huh. It is actually kind of fun to watch her be a lawyer in season 3.
Okay.
So, again, spoiler alert, but it is it's kind of fun to watch her in a courtroom for many reasons.
Okay,
gotcha.
And we could get into that later.
We all gave our reviews.
I'll reviews have been given.
Okay.
It didn't go great.
Real quick, I want to try something. What are you all watching right now?
Generally,
You just like what's either movies or TV shows. What have you been watching?
I just finished up Wednesday season 2.
Oh, I didn't even know season 2 came out.
It's interesting.
Right now, Hannah and I are watching Buffy and Angel, doing the simulcast.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Some parts of it are very campy and great, and some parts of it haven't aged as well.
That's fair.
I honestly don't have a new show I'm watching right now. I'm looking for a new one.
Okay.
I started watching Mr. Robot and got bored.
We finished Pluribus. That was great.
Okay. I don't.
Season 1. It's only 7 episodes or 9 episodes, something like that.
I don't have Apple. I guess I am slowly making my way through Ted Lasso. I keep having to stop
How do you
for
not have
holidays and things.
You don't have Apple, but you can watch it? Is it on something else?
I have I bought the Blu-rays
Oh,
because I really like season 1 when I
Okay.
watched it at a friend's house.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to subscribe to Apple, so
fair enough.
I bought the discs.
Fair. Here's my thoughts on Ted Lasso. It's honestly, I think it's very good, but it was so good because we were so sad in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
As one of the reasons why it was so good is that it was just a happy thing in the middle of nonsense.
I thought there was a drop off. Season 2 is great, and then season 3 is kind of it's fine.
Okay.
Season 3 is like 1 and 2 I thought were phenomenal, and 2, 3 was
season
like
3.
I don't know if you know.
Season 3
Derek.
at least makes it look.
We're going through some
season
shit
3 makes
now,
it at least
too.
look. Fair enough.
Oh yeah, we're going.
Fair enough, Jeff.
What are your thoughts on the war that just started? On the war?
Derek.
That's fine. We can end it right now. It's fine.
Derek has no comment because if Derek commented, it wouldn't go great.
I have that rule on what I would do if I were ever in. I'm not even gonna say it because we're recording right now. It was great talking to you guys.
Guys, it was great. This was awesome. This was the best show we've ever done.
Yeah.
Good night.
The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa PLLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2026, all rights reserved.